My name is Peter Hahn, and I'm going to be doing some demos for you guys right now. 4-point perspective. If you have a 1-point perspective, you have a horizon line, HL, you have a vanishing point, your objects will converge to the vanishing point. Let's make it a bit more interesting by establishing 4 vanishing points, top, bottom, left, and right. And we'll connect them through arc, and the further it recedes away from the center of 0, the degree changes much more extremely. Now this is basically the fisheye lens that we talk about, and of course our eyes can't see this. We see in 30 degrees in one eye and other, so we have a 60-degree cone in which we can see then of course the general perspective in the world around us. This kind of shows you the idea and the concept of how these lines will converge. Now there are many artists that are using this kind of curvilinear perspective, but why do we use it? As a fisheye lens, it expands the frame to be able to capture many more objects and things. Most of the times when we're drawing things like 1-point, 2-point perspectives, it's usually isolated to a singular subject matter or to a flatter perspective. This covers a lot more rotational information. So it really opens up the frame, but it does create distortion effects. And that can be a little bit tricky to kind of balance, but it does create dynamics within the actions of what's going on. So if I drew something, let's say a guy punching or something like that, in a 1-point, 2-point perspective, it can feel pretty energetic. It has good depth and space, but it can lack a little bit of energy. So the curvilinear perspective can make it feel more extreme. So things like 3-point perspective is helpful for things of scale, looking up and down of building structures, and our eyes can see that if you have a large enough form. So if I put a box on a table, look down at it, you can't really see the third vanishing point. 1-point, 2-point is really the best things we can really use. Now the 4-point, and of course we can go up to 5-point perspective as well too. With the vanishing point in the middle, you can have that come out.
If you want to go deeper in exploring these different types of perspective, check out my course at proko.com/perspective. You'll gain depth in your understanding and bring those ideas inside your head into focus on paper. Plus even more guest demos from Peter Hahn to broaden your view. Right now, during the 12 days of Proko, you can get the full picture for 15% off all Proko original courses, including the Perspective course, now through January 1st. See you there.
Let's start drawing. I do place in landmarks and underlay. Usually, it's very minor marks. That information is all I need to get started. What that is the implication of the horizon line that was here. So I don't need to draw the complete line. I just need to establish a couple of marks to help me place where that goes. Now, everything around it, whether it goes up and down, left and right in curvilinear, will establish itself because of the horizon line, all right? So now I can start to draw some kind of mechanized form. Maybe some kind of standing mech. I have the back hatch going up, but let's draw the shoulder piece first. And I'm not gonna construct through form and shape. I'm actually gonna go straight in there because of the fact that we only have an hour. I'm gonna try to maximize as much information as I can. So people wonder, it's like, well, do you start with the head and do you start with the body? It's like, really, for me, at this point, it doesn't matter where I begin. I can start with a hand, a shoulder, the back, the legs, and work my way around it. Because I can now start to visualize the directions of angles perspective from that horizon line. But I can also, in my mind, visualize the 3-dimensional form of what this is. So first, let me draw this one component for you, which you can't tell exactly what this is gonna be just yet. But first, what we have is an upper arm, shoulder, down to the elbow region. And I'm using human anatomy to help me mechanize this. So I'm gonna draw a robot, a mech, okay? People ask me, it's like, well, how do you get those mechanical engineering details? I make it up, okay? It's all like pipes and pistons and, circles and shapes of certain squares, but they imply articulation, movement, joints. So if this is an elbow, I basically try to input as much information of detail of mechanical sections in that region only. A lot of other parts, this would be like deltoid muscle, tricep muscle, bicep muscle, but I combine them to be panels. So this would be an arm coming down. Head's gonna go up that way, back this direction, and feet are gonna come down this direction here. So I'm already visualizing how it's gonna taper, and then taper this direction. I draw loosely at first, even if it's something very mechanized. It almost seems like you have to be kind of perfect in an engineering level. But no, you can be gestural with mechanics and robots also. It's the indication that's everything. Now, before I move forward, this, to give you an idea of what I'm seeing in my mind, is this. These lines of the cross contours are now shifting in degree of angle. Here to here, here to here. That's the horizon line. So as it goes up above the horizon line, it goes that direction, then down that direction, okay? So I've established the horizon line by 3 dots. I've established curvature up here, curvature down here. I've set everything in terms of what I need. I don't have to actually worry anymore. I feel comfortable now. Just by this alone, I'm perfectly comfortable with everything else because I've established the direction of lines I need to go towards, the scale, the size of the drawing, and the horizon. Now it's just about capturing the rest of the piece. So as we move forward, let's go into the midsection of the torso. And I'm going to have a hatch on the back end of it. Kind of opened up like this. We'll have the head going up that way. And again, because we're curving upwards. And this mech will be some kind of like gladiator type robot that fights others or something like that. I'm just making it up as I go. And we'll have a mechanic back over here standing, working on the thing. Maybe some of the people over here too, walking that direction, walking that way. So as I'm drawing, I'm literally just choosing, making up ideas as I go along. Maybe I'll put a dog down here walking by too. I don't know. I think about animals a lot of times. We're going to put in some kind of conflict of like, not conflict, more of a partnership of nature and mechanics. I want the organic and the mechanized things to be brought together in a lot of ways. This will be the hip region. And I'm going to complete this guy first, mostly, as the leg comes down. This is where I'm not going to shift and taper his thigh, coming down this direction. Big silhouette, big shapes, then internal information of details. I'll figure all this stuff out later in terms of, real detail work. Down to the knee, into the calf region, and that will taper, and you're going to squeeze that scale as much as possible. As I squeeze the scale, the skewing effect starts to take shape. Now, of course, he's on a ground plane, so his feet will be in perspective as well too, shooting up that direction, going that way, as I have the back leg in place. Silhouette only for now. And we'll have some kind of like engine or battery part or exhaust system, maybe a bunch of pipes and intricacy. So where am I pulling this stuff from? Again, visual library, memories of things that I've drawn many times, cars and vehicles and engines and motorcycles. And all that collected data was generally big shapes, but over the many years, you're talking about thousands of drawings that I'm able to just pull it out and indicate these things. Do I know them specifically in terms of exact details? I don't, which is why references will always be used. It never goes away. It reminds me because I forget. I always forget about those things and details. But I'm also able to mix and match. So if there's a part that I don't know what I'm supposed to do with this part, I put in something else. People then worry about, well, doesn't it not make sense though if it's not logical or exact to the exact design of the things you've seen? Well, because I'm playing right now, this is sci-fi fantasy, I can do whatever I want with it. The rules can be broken. They can be bent. So now that we have a standing mech and robot right there, let's place in a guy over here reaching up and like tinkering with the stuff. Let's start with his hand initially. As I said, I can start anywhere. Starting with the hand, I want to work this direction to the body. By these kind of movements, I'm ghosting the action. You'll see my hand doing this a lot of times, just moving. Why? And a lot of artists do that is because it helps them establish where things might be. It helps them visualize placement. Shoulder might be about there, leg will be about here. I've now placed in markers already there on the page. I've already now established where I need to go next. So there's no guesswork. It's not guesswork, but it is spontaneous. Through control by training, many years of it, I can also now play loosely. Let's have him go this direction, up to the sleeve, onto the shoulders, down to the feet down here again. Now, also like ghost motions like this every now and again is a simple action to help build confidence towards moving that line, single stroke. Most of the times people feather. They use many lines to produce just one line. And so much action produces so much noise, it gets very, very dense and all your drawings feel extremely busy. So to create line confidence, go through the motion first, then put the line down, right? This brush pen requires a little bit more pressure sensitivity because this is a Pigma fine brush pen. If you're heavy-handed, you will most likely destroy these things. You'll squash it. So in those situations, I would even recommend things like fountain pens. The great thing about fountain pens is that you can get various sizes. This one over here is a really good one. It's been actually customized, so I can get really broad strokes with this. But of course, they're sustainable. I carry these fountain pens around all the time. The only pen I actually literally buy off the shelf are these ones here. I don't really buy a lot of pens anymore because I don't like to have a lot of plastic waste. So I carry these and I fill them with ink and they're good to go. So let's have his head pop up here, put an ear on that, give him a hat. I'm gonna give him a mask. As he comes down, he's gonna have some kind of jumpsuit. So in this situation right here, I'll tell you my mentality and thoughts about what's going on. Because I said, you won't see the mistakes if I don't tell you. This is a mistake, all right? I like sharing these kind of things because it helps me understand how to adapt really fast. I've already made a choice of what to solve this with, okay? Scale. As I've drawn this figure in there and I placed him in, I feel like he's gonna be too small. As he's too small, okay, how do I solve that? Well, let's have him stand on something, right? He's gonna have to be on a ladder or some kind of prop. And so that way I can elevate him from that position. If I didn't, people would have forced it by making his legs really long. Proportions off at that point. So in those moments, I can already predict his body is a bit too small in scale already. His legs are going to only end up stopping right about here. So let's put him on something. Skew that direction, down this way, curve that way. We are actually using a fifth vanishing point. So before I showed people the grid, the 4-point perspective. 1, 2, 3, 4, but this is the fifth vanishing point. This box now is receding back into the fifth vanishing point. So again, we're using this curvilinear perspective because I want to open up the frame to capture many, many things. Now that I solved that, sigh of relief, right? I can keep going. But that's all up in here. You won't feel it. When you guys are drawing, you make those mistakes, you have to understand you're the only one going through that stress. Nobody else perceives it. So you can let that go. But I understand mistakes are mistakes. And when you see it and you can't fix it, what do I do in that situation? Start over. At that point, mostly in proportion. Proportion is the number one thing where you make a mistake, you can't fix, you gotta start over. Perspective can be manipulated, but proportion cannot be. You can skew things, but if it's not consistent to the entire image, then it stands out singularly. That's the problem with proportion. If it's not intentional, it shows. Down to his feet, onto a platform. Here's his hat now, and we'll get his other arm coming up. And I just suggest information. We'll use dark values later on to kind of push dark in and out to contrast stuff, but also push things in the background as well. Sitting on some kind of crate, I don't want to leave it as a box. So I want to imagine, well, what would they have inside of a mechanics, place? Maybe some kind of, box system that carries tools or storage. I'll put like little hinges and seam lines on it to give you the impression that it's some kind of storage box. Playing with the actual surfacing of concave and embossed areas maybe. Paneling lines here and there. These kind of panel lines, I'm not going to gradually input into the mech. The panel lines, you know where I get them from? Gundams. I used to build a lot of model kits. Helicopters, airplanes, cars, and Gundams and robots. As I physically play with those things, I see them in observation like vehicles and cars. I can pick up on that stuff. Gundam and model kits are actually really well engineered because they got to be able to articulate really well. So as I build them, I'm able to see how they move, and I'm able to use that as articulation to input within these areas. Hinge joint, saddle joint, rotational joint inside here. I'm already thinking about this stuff. Hinge joint here. Circular stuff. It's basically now I'm thinking of as a cylinder connected to a frame, maybe down to like a foot. Then I put like a little screw on there. There's your joint. That's what these circles represent. A flat screw. Panel line. How I do the panel lines? Grab a shape of any type. Random abstract shape. 1, 2, 3 sections. Any sort of placement of areas. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Each section has a breakdown of 3 patterns. That's where I find the best aesthetic. If I do over panel line of things feel really busy, but what also happens is that people will panel line like this on mechs and robots. You just do parallels. But I want to play with large, medium, small, and I break angles as well too. Sometimes you can move with the form. Then I do little accents, vents, portholes, access points, and also graphical design. Maybe like stripes, patterns, and it inputs that extra bit of information of detail, which is very easy to place in, but it's also not very hard to do. It's an optical illusion of detail. When you look really close at this drawing, most of these lines are very indicative. This is also how Kim Jong-gi worked. Kim Jong-gi was also very good about indication. That's what he was a master at. People wonder, like, how is he able to do so much crazy detail stuff, remember everything? Well, he does, but he also knows how to indicate so effectively that you can look up really close to his drawings, and they're very gestural, random marks almost. But you step away from it, and you see this amazing just combination of information of detail. But it's because it's an allusion to the detail. That also means that you don't need to know every single bit of detail also. You can make some of that stuff up, gesturize it, and it gives you the implication of it. Let's keep going. Let's put, just to establish that 4-point perspective a little bit, but also the 5-point, let's place in some more boxes. Boxes are always good, forms, structures, have it curve up this direction as well too. Just like crates just standing around. As it gets further out, this would curve even more extremely. Now, you can also visualize the vanishing points. There's a 5th vanishing point here. I'll go through the stroke sometimes just to make sure the angle and the position is proper. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 vanishing points. So there's one on this side. I'm going to visualize where that goes. Physical motion is a big part of also how you express. Everything you seem like is all about small little things, but your whole body is an aspect of actually you creating on drawing. It's my hand, my finger, my wrist, my elbow, my shoulder. Everything is engaged. Shoulder to the neck, to the abs, to the back end. Everything's not tense, but I'm engaging in them. If you're slacking and slouching, kind of just doing this, you're only focusing on this region right here. What happens is that you will injure yourself because you put too much strain right there. But if I also incorporate everything else, my hand rises up, I'm riding along the pinky, sliding along this. So the elbow is lifted, pinky's in contact, and I'm moving everything. So it's kind of a dance in a lot of ways. You have to engage all parts of your body. When I was a student, I would be on this arm, I'd be really low, my head crooked, sitting there like this rigid the entire time. I hurt my neck when I was a teen, in my 20s. I was at Art Center College in Pasadena, and I would sit there for like 8-9 hours drawing, and I wouldn't recommend it. And I would sit there like that in one position, take a few breaks here and there, and I paid for it. I had a lot of neck spasms over here. I had to go to the hospital sometimes. I'd be waking up, I couldn't move. I got Demerol shots just to get muscle relaxants. And it felt horrible. It was absolute pain, some of the worst pain I ever had. Over time, as I graduated, I got to working out, straighten my neck out. My mom would cut hair. She had a salon. So I'd go home after school, and she would give me a haircut. It's like, why is your head crooked? It was literally permanent like this. So over working out, I was able to straighten it back out. But that's what I'm saying. Be careful of your position. Fifth vantage point, that way. Skew position, that direction. As I get closer to the horizon line, things will start to even out. Let's put another guy back over here. He's just gonna walk past them. As I said, the perspective is not really the tricky thing. The big tricky thing that I have when it comes to combining multiple stuff is scaling. If I put another person back here, can I make sure the scale matches to the exact environment, right? If I make them too big, it breaks the illusion. So I have to make sure that I establish general motion, movement, feet's gonna be down about here. He's gonna be in a jumpsuit, back leg going this direction because he's walking, going this way. Maybe he's carrying some kind of like box as well. Boxes everywhere. Draw cubes, okay? Practice cubes constantly. This is gonna be the thing that saves you. Best way to draw a cube, think of a Y, the letter Y. Then connect the edges. Use that Y to rotate around, connect the planes. As we get him in place, I might place in a few more elements, but I also wanna create maybe just a bit more information of things like structure or form, so I can really get that skew perspective in place. So next thing I'm gonna do, problem solve. What do I do now? How do I place something in there? I don't want a background, like an environment, interior, ceiling or walls. I don't really want to go that far. I only have so much time to maybe just place in a couple of structures here and there. So what I might want to do then is place in some kind of chassis frame that goes around, down this direction, and I'll have stuff like hanging off of it. I kind of imagine like engines being lifted on crates and being shifted and moved around. We'll have that in place there. It's gonna go up this direction. Now, as you'll notice, I'm not doing this a lot, okay? Now, it's okay to rotate your page as much as you want to. It is all right. I'm not doing it because I've trained myself not to do that. Why? Because it won't disorientate you. So I don't want to make you dizzy by constantly doing this. So let's have stuff like hanging off of this section, chains or ropes and stuff like hanging off of it. Maybe on this side as well too, or even things like light systems. And I'll fill up the details as we go, but I just want to establish all the components that we need to have. And maybe I'll place in some kind of upper torso of another mech, just the torso. Connection of where the arm goes down this direction, just the frame. You know what just popped into my head? I can't explain why this kind of stuff happens, but my brain, as soon as I have something on the page, my brain goes through a Rolodex of images of stuff. Like movies I've watched, pictures I've seen, places I've gone to, and movies are a lot of the times where I turn to. The movie that I all of a sudden imagined was Chappie. You guys seen Chappie? It's a good one. And there was that great scene where in the beginning where they bring the initial robot in. That wasn't Chappie just yet, but he's like, it was blown up. He got hit by a missile. And they bring him inside that warehouse, and they're like checking him. And they put him on a crate. He's actually on a hook. For some reason, that came to mind. Am I gonna use that? No, but it's inspiration, a drive to keep me going. I'm constantly being fed a visual inspiration, so that way I don't just stop and go, oh, what do I do here and there? But while I'm doing this, my brain's already thinking of the stuff. I'm 10 steps ahead while I'm still talking to you. So I'm actually doing two things at once. Now, is that talent? It's a skill. It can be trained. Is it easy? Hell no, okay? How long will it take? There's no guarantee of time. It took me probably over 20 years. If some student's saying, well, I'm taking classes right now, I got 2 years to train, can I get that? Probably not. But will it take you shorter? Maybe 10, maybe 5 years. But it took me almost 20. So really the only thing that's separating between me and some people is just time alone. But are you gonna be invested to search for it? Are you curious enough to actually commit to it and find that skill that you're really trying to see, also trying to gain? For myself, I feel like I'm still trying to gain it. I have an aspect of control, but I'm able to play with it but I still feel like I want to become even more efficient, a lot more confident. And so I have a lot more road ahead of me. But that doesn't scare me. For a lot of other people, it gets intimidating. And there's so many other people that can do it so much better than me. It's going to take so much time. How do I actually just commit? Well, I don't get scared by it, but I actually get very excited because I also enjoy what I can do now. As I enjoy and love what I do, it keeps me going to think about, well, what's going to happen tomorrow? If I'm drawing this right now and I love it, what if I'll draw tomorrow? It's going to be even that much better. Then like a year goes by, 2 years goes by, and all of a sudden producing things that I didn't think I would be able to do this kind of stuff. I don't plan for it. It comes naturally. By over planning, the expectation weight becomes very heavy. And because it never matches to your expectations, most people that I know give up, even though you could have had the potential to get there. All right, we have a frame chassis. Again, we're gonna go that direction, that direction, that direction, up here, going down this way. Now again, I'm really starting to establish that grid, curvilinear perspective. Let's place in a few more figures of people. Now you might think, do I have to be as fast as you? No, of course not. In those early moments of training, my recommendation is to take your time, okay? Invest into it. If it's taking hours, let it happen. Then as you finish it, if you're rested enough or if you feel energy, do it again. See if you can cut that time down, okay? I'm not talking about full illustrations like this. I'm talking also about just simple little things like this, building form. How long did this take you to do? Oh, it took me like 3 minutes. Do it again. How long did it take you? Oh, it actually took me 1 minute because I now knew what I was trying to do. Do it again. How long did it take you? Oh, 30 seconds, right? To build speed is not just moving fast. By moving fast, you just get scratches. It's all about intention and familiarity. If you know what you're doing, there's no wasted motion. There's no thought process. You already thought about everything. Now it's just action, right? Now, of course, as I'm drawing these things, does that mean that I've drawn this exact thing before? No, but I've drawn many similar things like it. So because the familiarity is there, I have the speed to move and to also think and just draw and talk to you guys all at once in one single action. So an hour is quite a long time for me. 10 minutes, sometimes is all I need, you know, and I can just finish everything I want. So for me, for an hour, it's like, I'm really trying to slow down actually, okay? I'm really trying to make it as slow as I can. Even talking wise, I'm really fast in talking. So I talk, draw, and walk really fast. So I'll try to keep this in pace as best I can. With this guy complete, what I'm gonna do is throw a couple more pieces around the edges over here, and then I'm gonna go into these other tool sets and start establishing darks and details, okay? Again, another box over here. Marks like this, very gestural. It's okay because again, I'm gonna use contrast and shadow shapes and darks to kind of push things to the background. Let's see, let's take some of these boxes and just add a couple of additional small little details here and there. Maybe make some like weird, you know, transparent things inside them. So inside them, let's put, how about like, again, engine pieces. Maybe it's like plastic crates. Now it's just about filling in small little things. Any opportunity of open space is now the thought of, what do I want to put in there? I think that's how I think Kim Jong-il did things. You know, it's like he had a box like, well, what do I want to put in there? He just randomly just chooses stuff. I'm going to put an alligator in there. I'm going to put a skull in there. I'm going to put, that's fun, right? Because he's only drawing for himself. When you guys produce things as well too, again, when you plan so severely, that plan falls apart a lot of times. It doesn't always go accordingly. But when you're able to play with things and just adapt and kind of establish what you want in there for just fun, then the pressure goes away and you're able to stick with it and focus for a very long time. So if I said, oh, I have to draw this exact thing over here to the exact details, it's like, oh, that's a lot of pressure. I don't know. But if it's like, I'm going to randomly just place in a giant person. You can if you want to, right? Because I'm also just drawing for me. All right, we got something in there, maybe a crate system. Yeah, let's place in some more additional, just random details, framework, little handles, panel lines. Let's place in a little cat down here, walking by. A lot of warehouses and garages usually have a house cat. Another memory just popped into mind. A place I used to go to a lot is the Chino Air Museum. And it's about maybe 40 minutes from here. And they would always have cats all around the airplanes, just sitting on top of them. And I always loved that. Animals that are inside places like this. Heavy machinery and these animals that have adapted. Maybe he's chasing a rat. Just indication of marks. It's not about exact details. Through the shapes, people understand what's going on. By adding these kind of elements, again, it continues to really push scale. Large, medium, small. Then it also incorporates a sense of immersion. Let's get in some additional small little marks and details inside the frame just to dress it up a little bit. Again, more light systems, spotlights, or just additional tech details. Maybe engine pieces again. This stuff won't really matter as much in terms of its clarity or its specifics in detail work because I'm going to create a focal point right in here. The focal point is me to control where I want you to look in the image. If I place the exact same level of information everywhere, it gets kind of flattened out. So because we're warping the perspective, I want this to be pushed more forward. So inside this region only, contrast, dark, shadow shapes will go. Let's start doing that now first. If we have to add more pieces, we'll come back to it. Let's use the MB. This is the same pen, a slightly larger brush, and we'll just establish dark spaces in between. Dropping in things like cast shadows. I'm imagining top-down light and just grouping details. When people start to go into stuff like this, they get a little bit afraid because you put in so much time to draw all these things and you don't want to lose it. But sometimes you got to just group it together. Group it, collect it, make it one solid read graphically. One of the last kind of like educational conversations I had with Kim Jung-gi was at San Diego Comic-Con in 2018. We just talked about drawing approaches, techniques and stuff. And I asked him about, certain things about, what to focus on and what I should also be considering as well too. He talked a lot about the idea of what he wants to go for is this aspect of pushing things front and back graphically, collecting shadows, finding focal points. Again, group. All of a sudden, it feels more dense. It feels even more detailed. After the grouping of shadow shapes, I'll do a little bit of hatching. I pull from Mobius a lot. Mobius is the main guy I use for showing hatching volumetric. Group, shadow shapes. Drop that all down and begin to just mark it. With the brush pen, you cannot fight it. If you try to be specific like a technical tool, this thing will not do what you want to do. So you have to let it loose. That's why I also like watercolors and inks. Because sometimes when you work really like on wet, like a water technique, whether it's like ink wash or watercolor stuff, it's gonna move the where it wants to go. But if you try to corral it, it never really wants to go where you want it to. So then you get frustrated and it doesn't really turn out the way you want. People find it to be very difficult to use, and I agree. But once you understand the natural aspect of that material, you just let it loose. Stroke. So all these things are me just feeling it out now. Honestly, my vision is actually a little bit unfocused. I'm actually looking at the entire thing. I'm not tunnel visioning to this one point. That means as I'm looking generally, focusing on you in terms of thought and talking, and my hand is now just moving naturally by memory, muscle memory. So that means I don't have to even look over here. I can look over here and draw this. The hand gets grouped together, one solid silhouette. The finger comes out over here. So I can control the contrast and the opposing factors in the background. Engine pieces up here. We'll let it dry a little bit. Just watch out for the smudging. A little bit of ink right there. That's natural. All of us as artists know that. Ink smudge. To avoid the whole ink smudging though, usually I'm working from this direction down. So I didn't go up that way, right? So I'm going to make sure I intend to start in a certain region that I know I'm going to pull away from it. Now, if you're left-handed, drawing this direction, of course, you would have gone that way as well, too. So as I mark things over here, I am not ambidextrous. This is my weak hand. What I'm showing you right now is that those detail marks that I did with my right doesn't matter. It's just movement, strokes, lines, accents. I haven't drawn with my left hand in probably 2 years. My first time doing it in 2 years. So just mark it. Just play around, move. Why is it so hard to draw with my left hand, though? I realized when I've taught now for many years why students complain of the endurance of drawing, why it's so hard to sit for so long to sketch. It's because it hurts. When I draw with my right hand, I have the callus built up. I've been drawing since the age of 5, okay? So my bone structure in here is much more dense. The muscle in my thumb is also much more dense in here. So I don't feel the burn in this. When I draw with my left hand, it starts to strain, but it also pinches right there because I don't have that bed. So when I have the pen sitting on that, it's like, it's like 10 minutes of drawing. It's like, that kind of hurts. I can't do that for very long, So when I teach now, I realize that aspect of it. So when people who are just starting drawing, who haven't drawn for years or if at all, I can have context to it because I train all parts of my body. Not because I feel like I want to or because it's something I need to do, because it helps me with teaching, right? I got to be able to make sure I'm on your level as well too. A little bit of detail on this guy. Bringing it down, shadow shape again on this end. We're going to switch it over to a slightly different pen, the Kuretake, a slightly smaller brush. And this will be, again, for hatching, mark making. And this will kind of rough up the surface because it can be a little bit too clean. So I like Mobius's technique where he will go in there, draw in a form or a shape, and hatch at the edges and work his way in and stack like that. Katsuya Terada also borrows heavily from this as well too. And I borrow a lot from Terada. So that kind of mark making is on the corners, on the edges, creeping into the form. And what it does is it makes it appear as if it's a volumetric turn, as it turns at the apex. So this is the area of light. This is the area of shadow. So from the area of shadow, I move in with the hatching internally, mark my hatches. So I don't start in the middle, I start on the edges and work my way in. Now any small little cleanups, more detail work, I'll use this thin pen for. So as we now wrap up some of the additional details, a lot of things I'm doing right now is that as I place in these kind of forms, it's just additional lines on edges, like this. And what it does is it creates a sense of thickness, density. So it's almost like drawing an ellipse from a cylinder and then drawing this ellipse on the inside as well too. Wider over here, thinner over there. But that gives you density, thickness of the material. So if I have a shape of the shoulder, a little bit of thickness of that material. And I do that in different regions of areas. Of course, the big thing to be aware of here is when to stop, right? When do I stop? I can keep going. And before you know it, you spent like an hour on it and you made a complete mess. When you ask yourself that question, I don't know when I should stop. Stop right there, okay? You have no idea what you're trying to go for. Said this in the past in many different kind of talks, but it's definitely a common thing that I always want to announce because in this moment, I thought about that. Well, I kind of want to stop this region now. I should stop. Move on, different section. And go back to the guy. So trust your gut, trust your instinct, but definitely the training will come into place where it becomes very natural. The awareness is everything, but it only comes through constant mileage, repetition. Okay, are there any questions out there? One over here. So he asked the question of, he's heard of the 4-point perspective. He's never heard of the 5-point. So this is the 5th vanishing point. 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. These lines now go this direction. So if I drew a box, let's say from one of these grid points here, these lines are following the 4 vanishing points, but now I can go back into the 5th. That's 5 vanishing points. Can you do more? Well, I would say the thing you could do is on the horizon line, if you have a long enough piece of paper, you can extend that horizon line out and put additional vanishing points. So, well, how do I use something like that? Well, let's place in a box here. This is a vanishing point as well. On a single horizon line, I've extended this sphere beyond. So it's not really adding more points to this single image, but I'm extending the image itself overall on the single horizon. So I can add more vanishing points in between. So in terms of that, the amount of vanishing points you can put into it actually can be quite a bit because you can also rotate objects in space, right? So in a way, yes, but also no. I hope that was clear enough. All right, again, finishing up a couple of details over here. This guy's pretty good. I think he's done. Let's go to the guys back over here as well. Push them darken details. I'm going to use a big broad brush over here. Getting in some of those shadow shapes again. Getting the leg back into place, silhouette. Flip it back to the thin pen to get some minor details in place, but not overwork it. Right now, I'm doing a live drawing at my booth. It's on a canvas that's, I believe, like 3 foot by 5 foot, okay? It's on an easel. And I'm actually doing something like this in a 4-point perspective. I use that again mainly because it really enables me to capture many elements in the environment. Okay, that guy's pretty good so far. Now, if you're following along in terms of trying to also sketch and draw this, obviously it's not about trying to capture it one-to-one. What you want to go for is establishing initially the frame that I built up, which is the 4-point perspective, and just place in whatever you want for yourself. Whether it's like an animal or a creature, or even just boxes alone. It's not about matching this to one-to-one, but just use that initial plan. And of course, references are welcome. Keep using them as much as you want to. Turn to it, take breaks. Use that big broad brush again over here. Drop that down, shadow shape. That aspect of drawing in front of people, the public aspect of it, is a question I get a lot of time too. It's like, well, I see what you're doing, and it's fun to come to these shows, and I sketch for myself, but I don't like to show my work. You know, it's like, how do I get over that? For me, it's like, in my 20s, I was very much the same mentality. When I sketched something, I didn't want people to really see. If I was on location at a museum, people are walking by making a comment, I put my earphones in. You know, I didn't want to talk to those people. And sometimes they'd be very aggressive, like trying to get my attention, talk to me. It's like, oh, okay, thanks, you know, kind of thing. You know, I was very kind of modest and also a little bit shy, and I didn't really like to show stuff. I didn't like attention. But over the years, what happened was that I wasn't really challenging myself, you know? I was being very safe and reserved about what I was trying to produce. When I put myself out there, I realized it put me in a position that was very, very scary. And because of that, I had to find a way to come up with quick solutions. So it actually made my speed and my effectiveness and process better because I had to find solutions in those moments as I would draw live in front of a class, in front of students, practicing my verbal skills, speaking of things. But it had to be a gradual shift, of course. But then, you know, the opportunities. being able to teach, having schools asking for me. My mentor, after he passed away, Art Turner said, come teach. I was 27 years old. I was like, I don't know if I want to teach right now. I'm not going to be him. I'm still trying to work. But I couldn't say no because what he left behind in his legacy, I wanted to continue. In some cases, I had to change overnight in my thinking and process. I just had to put it out there. No matter how I felt and thought, I'll learn. I'll make it better. And if people are going to criticize, okay, I'll let them. Fine. I'll take that. But because of what people like my teacher left, now, of course, people who like Kim Jong-il left, I'm going to be even more active as I can to put myself out there, even if it's negative. If people say, oh, that's not that great, that's okay. I'll learn. I'll do better for you, right? That drive, the hunger is now going to start to even get stronger. I've always had this as a young person. And I think that's an aspect of why I wanted to put myself out there in that fear. The challenge of it, in actuality, over time, I started to run towards it instead of away from it because I use it as an energy source to keep going. I could do this for hours on end. Again, it's not the best thing to do. Balance is important, but I do have the endurance to do so. What I've talked about before in the past in my talks, that anything that you begin in, the best advice I can always give is that you're able to see it to the end. You finish it, right? You finish a day, you finish a drawing, you finish your education, you finish whatever you're going to be pursuing or whatever you promise. You do it. I think what that also does is it not only builds confidence in you, but it builds confidence in others in you. They can trust that you're going to complete what you said. Word is something that's solid. It's rock. Again, last bits of frame pieces over here. We pushed a bit of detail on this guy. Let's put a bit more chain work, details, wires, maybe more lights. Light over here. I think at this point, what I want to do is just look around. And sometimes what you have to do is step back a little bit and just give it a moment to absorb because you get tunnel vision. And I would say another recommendation as you are drawing and training is to stop for a moment and take 3 steps back. Just look, because when you're this close, you don't see some things that are happening. Now, I'm used to drawing in this angle and perspective. Drawing on a flat table can be hard. This is also kind of far away from me. Typically, I would want to be a little bit more on top. But being farther away, there's a perspective on the table, so distortion can be really tough to capture. If you want really good proportions, you might really get wonky. So sometimes drawing on an elevated surface can be helpful on an easel, but drawing on an angle can be tough on your hand. So drawing flat, I would say get closer and hover on top, overhead. But again, give yourself a moment, step back, look, think about a few things. The best thought to go for is my intention clear? Am I doing what I intended to do from the very beginning? If my intention was to study, this is a study, then I'm done. The thing about this is if I ask anybody here, or maybe even the general public, which is more finished, this or this? The general response is, this is a finished drawing. There's much more detail. There's so much more contrast, much more interesting visuals. My argument is that this is equally as finished as this because my intention was clear. My intention was to show you shape and form. I'm done. That's a finished drawing. My intention here is to push and maximize surface details, render, shadow shapes. So I have more to go. I know that I have more road ahead of me. I know when to stop, right? The entirety of the piece, not just in sections. Now, these are things I talk about in my classes. I've been teaching now for over 10 years. I've been doing a lot of stuff on live streams. I've been working with these guys with Proko. And also I do a lot of other stuff on my social media. So if you guys want to find me, Peter Han Style on Instagram is where you can find me. Obviously look for stuff on Proko, on the YouTube channel as well too. My live streams on Twitch are free. And so if you guys want to come talk, ask questions, I do these maybe like once every 2-3 weeks or so, about 2-3 hours. But Peter Han Style on Instagram is where I post up all my content information about upcoming things, news, also just live pop-up talks. So you guys are welcome to engage and interact as much as you can. Any last questions, comments, thoughts?
Do you do a lot of varying line weight or just use the shadow shapes to do that for you?
So I'll use my initial flat line initially to capture everything. Then I'll do shadow shapes, then line variation from there. Line variation is the last step because once you establish the thick and thin lines, you can't really do anything else beyond that. So you want to almost like wrap it like a present with the line weights. That's what I'm doing here, pushing line weight thick and thin in these areas of focal point. Now again, on the ground plane, I can place in things like tiles, grids, which is the general construction of the floor plan. And that now mimics what's going on here, right? Simple, if you can call it that. We'll just wrap up a couple of last things. I usually sign my work, which is my name on there, but I also have a giant stamp. This thing was custom made for me in Korea. I think some of these boxes I just fill up real fast. Just lines, accents, details. I'll see you around. Thank you guys.
Peter creates complex perspective scenes from imagination without constructing grids, which is one of the goals of our perspective course. You'll use tools like grids to get the understanding into your intuition. Join me at proko.com/perspective. The 12 days of Proko are happening now, and you can get my perspective course and any other Proko original courses for 15% off now through January 1st. See you there.